For people who want to get into incident response, what mindset do you think they should have?
Flexible and agile. At the end of the day, cybersecurity is too vast an industry to know everything, to even scratch the surface of it. As you know, right? I mean, you can be in an offensive security, you could be in incident response, you could be in advisory and consultancy. And even then, the sub-disciplines within those areas of cyber there are a dime a dozen. So really, what I would suggest is approach it like a puzzle. Every problem can be solved. You just need to apply yourself. All the knowledge is out there, really. I mean, we live in the age of LLMs, which are making things a lot simpler, but going out there and looking at the real source material and understanding how things work is really important.
Ladies and gentlemen, cyber heroes and cyber fans, welcome to another episode. As you know, I'm your boy, Mr. Fingerz, the one and only that cybersecurity guy. And today's guest is actually someone who has stood at the center of a digital chaos. He's brought calm, strategy, and leadership when it matters most. This particular individual has a global intelligence. This particular individual has led high-stake responses to some of the world's most complex cyber incidents, including multi-international ransomware attacks, insider threats investigations, and negotiations with some of the most notorious threat actors on this very planet. He's actually based in the Netherlands and operating across UK and other countries like South Africa as well. His high-performing teams across regions, bringing together legal counsel, insurers, law enforcement, and technical teams in moments of high pressure and uncertainty. He's also a certified forensic investigator. He's also a lead threat actor negotiator. He is also a public speaker, known for translating chaos into clarity, helping businesses understand not just how to respond to cyber threats, but how to lead them. What truly inspires me about this next individual is that this man truly believes in himself and has confidence in what he does, even with this team. His work actually speaks for him. Every single time I try to reach out to him, guess what? This man is out here negotiating on ransomware attacks because that's what he does all the time, man. He has his plate full. Ladies and gentlemen, cyber heroes and cyber fans, please help me welcome Tim. Tim, welcome to the show, man.
Wow, that is quite an introduction. Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm not sure if I can quite live up to that generous description, but I'll do my absolute best while I'm on show. And thanks once again for reaching out and making the time to have this conversation with me. I'm really excited for it.
Hence, I rewrote your profile from scratch. And the reason why I decided to rewrite it from scratch, taking your story, everything, putting it all together, is because I saw that you've worked so hard to get where you are, right? But I want you to take us through that. Like, take us to the beginning. How did you first get into cybersecurity? Who introduced you to cybersecurity?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the story might not be a straightforward one. And probably, depending on how people interpret it, might be a bit of a lesson for people who don't have a clear or sort of, it's not a clear graph up the ladder sometimes in your careers. I actually started out my career not in the technical cyberspace. So I was in a physical security wing of SRM, a crisis management team. That was my first job outside of university. I'd had a couple of internships at places elsewhere, but it was my first full-time job outside of my master's at UCT. So I worked there for 2.5 years in the crisis management team. And then I think it was August 2019, I was made redundant from that team as we went through downsizing. And it was a really interesting time in my career because, anyone who's listening, who's gone through a similar process of being made redundant, it's not really about your performance, right? You can be sort of a high performer. You can be just doing your job 9 to 5, and you can be a pretty low performer. It doesn't really matter if there's a redundancy. It kind of hits everyone. And so it was a very tricky time. I had to sort of reassess, say, what do I want to do here? Where do I want to go? And as part of my job in crisis management, one of the aspects of my role was supporting a team we called the KRE team, and that's kidnap, risk, and extortion, or kidnap, ransom, and extortion. And these are experts who essentially do negotiations in threat to life cases. Maybe an avocado farmer in Mexico gets kidnapped by the cartel. These are the guys who will come in on behalf of the insurance to sort of save that person from the cartel through a professional negotiation. And just by sort of supporting this team, I got a real flavor for, okay, this is what an expert looks like in the field. And I thought, well, cyber has a lot of similar aspects to it. And particularly in 2019, you started to hear about major incidents like the WannaCry and NotPetya incident hitting the headlines. And so you felt if you were in the risk space or the security space, it was a pretty natural transfer to move over into the cyberspace. And so in 2019, SRM offered me the job as a junior analyst in the cyber incident response team. And I absolutely seized it and went from there. I think it might be quite familiar again for quite a lot of people. It was COVID. So after I moved from Cape Town, so I was working in Cape Town for SRM for the first 2.5 years of my career with them. And then in October, after getting this offer to join the incident response team, I moved from Cape Town to London. And there on the 1st of October, my first day in the cyber team was the 14th of October, 2019. And for anyone and everyone who remembers their first wave COVID history, that was 5 months before COVID hit. So as you can imagine, you're sort of just getting to grips with London, exploring as a South African or someone who spent a lot of my life in South Africa as a young man. London is a big city. Joburg is a big city, but London is a really big city. And so I was just getting to grips with living there when COVID hits. You get locked in a room, basically a small apartment in a country which is pretty foreign, to be honest, to me. And that was really tricky. It sort of forced me into a situation where you can either put your head down and, learn your craft, right? In a way, there's a silver lining there. You get this time, this space really to just focus. There's nothing else you could do. You can't go out. You can't go play football with your friends, And so it was a real challenge, and so we kind of, quite a few of us, I think, in this area of cyber who were entering the space and trying to learn, realized that COVID was almost an excuse to have another university, right? So you do your 9 to 5, and then after that 9 to 5, you can study. And so I think COVID was the most difficult. And my wife, now wife, Clolo, she couldn't get into the UK during COVID, which made it quite a difficult personal challenge as well, being separated from her, my friends, family, etc. And so I moved to the Netherlands actually to spin up SRM Netherlands, which is now our main European regional hub, with the head of office, Martijn, who some listeners might know from the TV show Hunted, actually, as one of their lead investigators on the TV show. And so we set up this business in the Netherlands, and that was how I got my wife into Europe and solved the personal and the professional challenge. And from there, we've gone from strength to strength in both the UK and in our new European hub in the Netherlands.
Nice, man. It's been a journey from where we come from to where we are at this current moment. But I also want to still be there, just looking back. There was a key turning point or a case that propelled your growth from being an analyst to senior leadership. What was that key?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think I have to acknowledge SRM at this moment as well. The company that, as you notice from LinkedIn and you've referenced, going from junior analyst to head of a practice with coverage across, 3 continents is kind of unique for a lot of companies. And a lot of companies wouldn't place that kind of faith in people. The classic consultancy parachute hire will bring in someone, maybe someone from Deloitte, maybe someone from EY, maybe someone from another rival IR firm like a Mandiant or a Northwave. But it's a bit of a testament to where I work and the company that I represent, in that if you work hard and you prove yourself, and incident response is an arena where you cannot fake it. You're in such a high intensity scenario where you make one wrong brief and you can reinfect a multi-million-pound business. You can lose money for a business that then goes bust. These are very high stakes scenarios, as you've referenced. And so I think the fact that they place faith is a real testament to the company, but then you've got to prove yourself. And there's a phrase that often comes to mind when I think about how my career at SRM has gone, and that's luck always finds you when you're working hard. I've got very, very lucky in my career, and there's no doubt about it that some cases came along which the person who might have been next in line wasn't available because they were on holiday or something like that, and I got the opportunity to jump in and lead it. And I do think that sometimes the world there's a bit of luck for you and things fall into place. And cyber incident response is an industry where there was an explosion in demand, but not a lot of supply of technical consultants who understood how to speak the client narrative, the story of the attack, in plain English that executives could understand. People who didn't know what phishing was, or what a Trojan is, or what a ransomware attack is, right? They're hearing it for the first time. And so I was lucky. It was a moment when the industry exploded and I had an opportunity, and SRM really gave it to me. And so I wouldn't say there was a single case, but I would say in 2022, and 2023 actually, we had about 560 ransomware cases across 2 years in the UK just alone. And the numbers are incredible. They were almost coming in, 2 a day of significance. And the team was so stretched. We were running around trying to solve, put out fire after fire. And that opportunity, the opportunities that were given to so many people at that time, has propelled a lot of careers. I've seen people go from playing five-a-side with me on the rooftop in Cape Town in the corporate league down there, to setting up a head of incident response and an IR practice in Hong Kong, or 2 of my other colleagues going out to New York and ending up, heading up practices over states. There has been a lot of opportunity and a bit of a rocket for people who were working hard and got a bit lucky.
Man, that's a beautiful story. And you usually use this title, which I want to talk more about it. Most people don't know about it. And for me, it's something which grasped my attention, that you are a ransomware negotiator. Well, what exactly is that? What is a ransomware negotiator?
Yeah, good question. It's not exactly your typical role or title. I can appreciate that. It's a bit of a niche area, really, in the cybersecurity world, and a bit of a niche area in the IR world, the incident response world. Basically, when a ransomware attack occurs or a data theft incident occurs, in fact, any incident which involves an extortion dynamic where the cyber criminal is attempting to get some money from a company or an individual in exchange for some threat, to diminish a threat that has been made against that entity. You have a choice. You can either do that yourself and negotiate, or you can hire someone else. And what we often see is insurers who back your cyber insurance policy. If you're a company of a significant size, you're most likely to have insurance. Most insurers will want a negotiation that is being done with a ransomware group to be done by a professional. And you can see the reason why. They know that we have the expertise to bring down the ransom to a certain level where you could be saving easily 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 pounds just by initiating a conversation and not paying that first amount. And when an insurer is ultimately footing the cost, at the end of an incident, the insurer has a lot of power to sort of dictate how the process of the incident and the response to the incident works on the ground. And as part of managing a lot of cases, there have been a lot of people who have ended up becoming negotiators over the years. And I've got to say, there is a wide spectrum in quality in the cybersecurity industry. Like any gold rush, a lot of people have come in who might not have any experience. And I think it's worth saying or repeating, SRM is a bit of a unique position in the negotiation world. We were founded in 2005 by ex-military and other sort of ex-consultants from other firms. They came together, and as I said, one of the sort of key services was this kidnap, ransom, and extortion service. These are individuals who, and I won't name names here, but they've got experience 30, 40 years in the Metropolitan Police and other organizations like that, negotiating with criminals in threat to life scenarios. And so that level of experience, knowing how to negotiate with a terrorist group, knowing how to negotiate with an Islamist militant group, knowing how to negotiate with a cartel, is the lineage of the company I work for. And so when we got involved in cyber negotiations, it was a pretty logical sort of flow to bring that experience into the cyber world and use that experience and knowledge. And what we noticed was our model worked. A lot of the things that work to bring power in a seemingly powerless scenario in a negotiation context can port over and work in a cyber scenario. And so my job really is, we'll project manage the whole case. So my engineers will be building servers and restoring things from backups. My forensic specialists will be figuring out how the attack played out, what was point of entry, how did they say and what did they steal. And then I and my negotiators will do the negotiation splits. We'll reach out, whether that be on Proton Mail or through a negotiation portal on the dark web, and apply a strategy that's agreed with a client. Everything is transparent, and I think that is a really key concept for us in negotiations. We've got to do everything for the client with their agreement in alignment with achieving a specific objective. And most of the time, to be honest, we don't make a payment. We get a lot of information. We prove what data was stolen, which can be really useful for a client. But usually we don't end up needing to facilitate a ransom payment. But if the client wants us to do so, we are there to help them essentially facilitate that requirement.
What's the most intense negotiation with a threat actor that you ever had? What was actually on stake during that time?
I think there was a project in 2023 in July of that year where Clot, a ransomware group, had done a series of exploits against Go Anywhere software, and essentially it compromised a lot of file transfer servers. You can imagine there's a lot of organizations that use this type of software. So one of them was a financial services institution. A lot of sensitive banking information, mergers and acquisitions, the type of information that if you leak it on the dark web, people are going to bet on and you trade on that information. And that's a massive risk. And so ransom demand comes in, $12 million US. So, around probably 220 to 240 billion rand. It was a massive demand and one that, of course, we were brought in to try to reduce. We had a negotiation for several days, and this involved going back and forth for a while on price, on valuation, what the data actually meant. We get to a point where we agree a 50% discount. So we've got a reduction of $6 million US off their demand. The price now for everything is $6 million. We make the payment at 7:00 in the evening. And however, the broker who processed the Bitcoin transfer didn't pay the right transaction fee cost. So basically, if you pay a little bit more for the transfer, the Bitcoin will go faster. Because it was so much Bitcoin, it took ages to go through the blockchain and arrive in the threat actor's wallet. And so it arrived 6 hours later. And I get a message on the negotiation portal saying, you're $200,000 short. And I'm sitting there going, it's the middle of the night. There's no support really that's going to be online at this time. I've got to figure this out. And what I realize is essentially because of the Bitcoin valuation at 7 o'clock the night before, in the 6 hour period, $6 million worth of Bitcoin had devalued by 200,000. So by the time the threat actor opened the wallet and had a look at it, it was not valued at the same amount. However, that was key to understand and realize, because of course the threat actor was trying to get themselves a little bit more money. I'm sure they knew what was going on. And so it was a bit of a fork in the road. You can buckle and pay a bit more, and the client's going to pay it, to be clear. Like, they're insured. They're not going to be paying for this at the end of the day. It will be an insurance tower doing so. And so they don't really mind. But I mind. And the problem is if you start to pay another demand, it's called re-extortion, then when does it stop? What if they ask for another 100K? What if they ask for another 50K? And so while there feels like it's a fork in the road, for an experienced negotiator, it's not really a fork in the road. There's only one proper route or course of action, and that's to resist the re-extortion or the secondary demand and hold your ground. And I must say that I've seen a lot of transcripts for other negotiations, and I've seen people fold again and again and again in that scenario, and you just you can't. And so we waited an hour to make them feel, okay, maybe I'm getting nervous about asking for more money, because for them there's also reputational damage associated with this. If we go to market or public the clock, this reputable gang is doing re-extortion, then it can cause that future payments may not be made. And so we left it for an hour, and then about 80, 90 minutes later, after agreeing a strategy with the one person that was online at the time, I simply went in there with, we're not paying anything else, check the wallet. And the message was, you've got what we agreed. It was 6 million when we sent it. Whether Bitcoin goes up or down really isn't our problem. And it took about an hour for them to respond. And I must say, it was an hour where the heart was sort of jumping or skipping a beat every now and then. And they came back, and it was a zip file containing the decryption tools, a list of all the data that had been stolen, and a video showing them deleting the data. It was exactly what we were looking for. And so success, but it got sketchy for a moment.
Nice, man. Well done to you on that one. For people who want to get into incident response, what mindset do you think they should have?
Yeah, I would say be flexible and agile. At the end of the day, cybersecurity is too vast an industry to know everything, to even scratch the surface of it. As you know, right? I mean, you can be in an offensive security, you could be in incident response, you could be in advisory and consultancy. And even then, the sub-disciplines within those areas of cyber there are a dime a dozen. And so really what I would suggest is approach it like a puzzle. Every problem can be solved. You just need to apply yourself. All the knowledge is out there, really. I mean, we live in the age of LLMs, which are making things a lot simpler, but going out there and looking at the real source material and understanding how things work is really important. I've seen a lot of people who are entering the industry now, they don't have to go through some of the difficulties from a few years ago. There are all these beautiful tools who are doing the parsing of the information and presenting it in these beautiful GUI interfaces. I remember using Zimmerman tools and having to parse each artifact and produce a CSV file and analyze it individually. And I think it actually helps you understand how an operating system works and how an artifact works and what the parsing of it all means. And so without going on a tangent about random artifacts in an operating system, I think my key message here is every problem is there to be solved and the data's out there. So I think as long as you're flexible and keen for a challenge, there's ample space for new people.
And because I feel like there's psychology behind this. What books are you currently reading to help you with all this?
Yeah, good one. There's a book I'm just looking at out of screen there. There was one provided to me by my colleague Vlada, a very talented Ukrainian pen tester, called Never Split the Difference. And it's from an ex-FBI negotiator.
Chris Ross, right?
Yeah, it's Ross. And I think I'm about 60% of the way through the book, I think, maybe a little bit more now. And I think a lot of the concepts that we've learned from the guys who work at SRM are reflected in the book. I think it's a really good book. And I must say the principle, the overarching principle of never split the difference, I know it's the headline, is so applicable to ransomware negotiations. It does become, there is a bit of a formula on both sides, and the recent Blackbuster negotiation chat leaks, basically the leaks inside their group between the negotiators, shows how they also apply their own formulas. And so what often ends up happening is a bit of a to and fro. I anchor here, they anchor here, I offer here, then we get towards each other. And at the end, they start to do a bit of an ultimatum. We're not going below this. An attempt to make you split the difference or offer the splitting the difference. Okay, how about we just meet in the middle here and end at 500,000? You know, we started at 1 million. Let's just do 50%. And if there's one takeaway from the book and one takeaway from my career so far, it's never split the difference, because when there's that much money on the table, these guys aren't walking away. And that's the thing. I see this a lot. I was actually reviewing a negotiation that happened in Europe the other day where a 4 million euro demand was paid. And the threat actor had asked for 10. The negotiator had said, how about 3? The threat actor then said, well, we'll do 4, dropping it by 6 million euros just off the bat. And the negotiator within 25 minutes said, yeah, we'll pay 4 million. And I'm sort of reading the transcript and going, if they've dropped their demand by 60% in the first interaction, why would you then immediately go with whatever they're saying next? You've clearly got some power here. It's a massive amount of money. There are very few big payments being made at the moment. The average payment value has declined significantly. And so to just pay 4 million feels like, how do I say this, while maintaining neutrality, I think it's either incompetence or it borders on suspicious, to be honest with you. And there was a recent Bloomberg expose done on how a negotiator was working in the background with ransomware groups to get their own payment. That's the kind of thing that you have to avoid in this industry. And so transparency, I mentioned it earlier, but there are negotiators who are going out there and speaking to threat actors and not telling anyone what they say, not proving anything, not providing any transcripts, not showing any documentation about what they've done. That's some pretty scary stuff. Huge amounts of money being moved around and with very little oversight. And so I am hoping that in the future there's more regulatory pressure on this process, because at the moment there are some pretty poor negotiations being done and cyber criminals getting a bit of a feast when they should be having a famine.
Actually, that's very good, man. What advice would you give to your younger self or to anybody who's starting out in their cybersecurity journey?
I think it can be tempting when you go into a corporate environment, particularly in a consultancy context, to adopt the mask of another consultant. And what I've noticed is clients, they get a bit bored or maybe disconnect with the consultancy face, the classic, anybody looks like anybody who looks like anybody. And I don't mean visually, but I mean the advice that is given, the way that it is presented, the almost institutionalization of the individual. And clients don't want that. They want to have a conversation like we're having now, right? It's not supposed to be too doctored. It's not supposed to be too presentable. There's almost a bit of a PowerPoint mafia out there, to be honest. And clients sometimes just want a conversation and hear your opinion on something, and expertise sometimes can be communicated that way. So I think stay true to who you are, work really hard, and then luck will find you.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. What type of legacy would you like to leave behind, or what do you want to be remembered for?
To be honest with you,
I know.
I had like to have a really great career. I love my job. I love my team. And if there's one thing I could be remembered for, I hope it's by my team for being a good person to work with. Incident response can be really, really tricky, man. I mean, I don't want to use too many military analogies, or no one's dying in cyber, or not really. But you do find yourself in a bit of a virtual trench with people. And I do hope that in the late night calls and the 18-hour days, and when you're trying to rescue a healthcare facility which needs to be up the next morning to take in their patients, or a bank that needs to keep the transactions going because someone's about to lose their access to their pension, man, you just got to hope that what I'm doing with my team is enough to keep them protected and our clients back online as soon as they can be.